Hey guys, I was given the opportunity from Jagex to try out Necromancy early and play test the skill. So a huge shout out to the Jmods for the invite and for hosting the preview event. It was a lot of fun and it was so exciting learning more about this amazing combat style. There is a lot of new information to unpack and show you guys, so I will have timestamps in the description to each section. But let's start by taking a look at every Necromancy ability that will be in the game on release day. The first ability is the Necromancy basic attack. It is a basic ability, also just the auto attack that you will be using to gain adrenaline. You can see that on the ability tooltip it does mention your main and offhand, so it will scale depending on what necromancy weapons you are using. Touch of Death is the second basic ability. It does deal some decent damage, but it also generates necrosis stacks, which will help with the Finger of Death ability, and of course generates some adrenaline. The third and final basic ability is the Soul Sap ability. It deals the same amount of damage as the auto attack and other basic ability, but it also generates a residual soul, which you can then use for some of the other abilities within the style. Once you have some residual soul stacks, you can then use abilities like the Soul Strike ability. It deals a bit more damage than the Necromancy basic ability, and also it is an area target ability, so if you have multiple targets in one tile, it will deal damage to all of them. Another option with your residual souls is to stack them up, and then you can use them all at once with the Volley of Souls ability. This ability will deal 135 to 165% ability damage for each residual soul that you use. So you can see on this attack here against Vindicta, I used the Volley of Souls, and as you can see, it deals about 3k damage in 3 separate hits. The Finger of Death ability is another pretty powerful ability. From what I tested, this is going to be one of your more powerful abilities that you're going to use, a lot like Snapshot with ranged. You can see that it does deal 270 to 330% necromancy damage. It does cost adrenaline, so it costs 60% adrenaline. However, the adrenaline cost is reduced by 10% for each necrosis stack, and if you remember from earlier, the Touch of Death ability, which is just a basic ability, grants you 4 necrosis stacks. So if you use Touch of Death, then Finger of Death, you're using a really powerful ability for only 20% adrenaline. There are a lot of other synergies between abilities throughout this combat style as well, and it is going to take a while just to learn the different combos you can use. The Blood Siphon ability is a new type of ability, just called an ability. It doesn't have any adrenaline cost and also doesn't generate any adrenaline. It's best to show the ability here because it is more of an AoE or area target type ability. You can see that it is a channeled attack and it does deal 4 separate hits. The neat part about this ability is that it does heal for 70% of the damage dealt. So you're going to heal a lot from this ability, especially if you are using it for an AoE type purpose. So this ability might have some interesting uses, like for example the Raksha fight where the shadow anima pools must be AoE down. You can use this ability. You'll not only take out the anima pools but also heal from it. Arc Glacier is another example with the minions, so definitely a really interesting ability. The next ability is Bloat, which uses 20% adrenaline. It is a damage over time ability, so you can see that it does apply bloated stacks to the target, and it will last for 10 hits. You'll deal 25% of the initial damage per hit every 3 seconds, so essentially the ability will last 30 seconds and deal some damage over time. The Spectral Scythe ability is probably one of my favorite abilities. It is a really interesting one. You can use it 3 times in a row and each time it does something different. So the first time you'll swipe a Spectral Scythe, which will deal a fair amount of damage. You also have a chance at getting another residual soul stack, which is nice. Then it can be recast. The second cast, it basically does a hurricane attack which is the melee ability, and then the third cast, you will deal a Meteor Strike ability. Again, the ultimate Meteor Strike melee ability. So it's really cool to see this implemented within Necromancy. You can see the first time you use the Spectral Scythe ability, it costs 10% adrenaline. The Hurricane costs 20%, and then the Meteor Strike costs 30%. So getting all three casts down will cost 50% adrenaline, but it is a really fun and really powerful ability. There are two different ultimate abilities for Necromancy, the first being a Living Dead. It is a self-target ability, a lot like Death Swiftness and Sunshine, and you can see that it just boosts your Necromancy attacks a ton. Especially the Finger of Death ability, dealing 1.5 times damage when it already dealt 270 to 330% necromancy damage. The ability also looks pretty cool at turning yourself into a skeleton. The Death Skulls ability is the other ultimate ability. It is really interesting and unique. You can see that it launches a projectile of skulls which bounces from target to target, dealing a ton of damage. So it will bounce between yourself and enemies within 5 tiles up to 4 times, and the damage is quite high. You can also conjure different spirits, the first being the Conjure Skeleton Warrior, which just creates a skeleton warrior that spawns and attacks for you. The skeleton gains rage stacks for each attack it does. Although the skeleton only lasts 42 seconds, each rage stack will increase the damage dealt. Once you do have the skeleton conjured, you can use the Command Skeleton Warrior ability, which will then allow it to unleash its rage using a powerful hit. So it's pretty cool. You are able to conjure different spirits, and each one has their own unique ability that you can then use at any time. You can also conjure a Vengeful Ghost. This one does cost 30% adrenaline. It is quite unique because you will heal for 175% of the damage dealt by the Vengeful Ghost. You can then spend 70% adrenaline to command the Vengeful Ghost, which will apply haunted stacks to the target for each attack for 4.2 seconds. The haunted stacks makes it so on hit, the target will take 2 times the damage from all attacks, capped at 35% bonus damage. So this might be quite useful when you're ready to unleash a lot of rapid attacks on the target. You can then conjure a Putrid Zombie, which does attack for you and also deals poison damage to targets within 1 tile of it. You can then command it to basically explode, dealing a large amount of damage. It does cost 50% adrenaline to conjure the zombie, but it doesn't cost any to explode it. The final ability, which I don't think I actually had the chance to use, was the Death Grasps ability. It is a special ability with the tier 90 equipment, and it does deal a lot of damage. You can see it only costs 25% adrenaline, and it deals a lot of damage, dealing 405 to 495% necromancy damage. It also stuns and binds the target for 4.8 seconds, and it will deal additional damage for each necrosis stack you have. Definitely a really powerful ability, but as you can see, it does have a 30-second cooldown. While I didn't personally have time to test out all of the Necromancy Incantations, I did get the tooltips for all of them, and some of them look really powerful. You will require the new necrotic runes to cast each of these spells, and I do believe that at least the Greater and Lesser Bone Shield will be usable for all combat styles. I'm not sure about all of the other incantations, but I would assume so. The first incantation that you will unlock is the City of Teleport. You can then unlock the Lesser Bone Shield, which allows you to have a toggable bone shield around you, so you can cast all defensive abilities without actually equipping a shield. So that is going to be extremely helpful for PvM and bossing. Next is the Threads of Fate. This helps with different AoE tasks that you are doing, so it will link multiple enemies to share the same fate. The incantation will link 4 additional targets within a 4-tile range, so when you deal damage to that one target, all of the other 4 targets will take the damage as well. It is a really powerful AoE incantation. Then there's the Greater Bone Shield, which gives you a higher level bone shield. There's the Life Transfer, which is only going to be useful for Necromancy. It will allow you to sacrifice some life points to extend the duration of each of your spirits. At level 80, Necromancy will unlock the Invoke Death incantation, which is extremely helpful for certain bosses and creatures. Essentially, it will allow you to apply death mark stacks to your target. And what these stacks do is that it will execute the target with fatal damage if their life points is below 20%, with a cap of 30,000. If you were wondering why Vindicta instantly died at 30k HP in this clip, well, the death mark is why. At level 86, Necromancy will unlock the Darkness incantation, which is quite interesting. It will apply darkness for 4 minutes, and it will give you a 20% chance to dodge incoming attacks. Again, this is a pretty helpful incantation, and I think it will be used in just about any PvM scenario. There's also going to be the Soul Split incantation, which is just like the ECB special attack. For 20.4 seconds, 400% of the life points you would have gained from Soul Split will be instead dealt to your target. All of these incantations are quite helpful in their own right, and mixed with Necromancy, this could be a pretty powerful combat style. The third thing I want to briefly touch on is the Necromancy roadmap. This is going to be discussed in the news post alongside the upload date of the video, but you can see that Necromancy, it is going to be released in August. There's going to be the race to the world's first. Alongside the new combat skill, there are going to be 2 new bosses and 9 new quests. But as you can see throughout the rest of the year, there is going to be a lot more Necromancy related content as well. In September, there's going to be some new updates. It's TBA, but it is a major update, and also some player feedback. A new quest called Ancient Awakening in October, as well as a Halloween event, I would assume related to Necromancy. And in November, we are going to get a 3rd Necromancy boss. I am unsure what this boss might be, but definitely let me know in the comments what kind of 3rd Necromancy boss you guys are potentially expecting. As you can see, though, we have a lot of really exciting updates coming down the road for the rest of the year, and I am super excited to try out Necromancy on Monday. I think it is going to be a really exciting skill. It's going to be one that I find is going to be fairly easy to learn as you go along, but is going to be quite difficult to master. With all of the different ability combinations, there are going to be some different niche uses, and this is probably going to be a skill where learning the full manual and figuring out what abilities to use in certain situations is going to be really important. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Jagex for inviting me to the event, and all the content creators who were there as well. It was a blast. Huge shout out to Rayo and Stormy for providing some extra clips and images that I wasn't able to capture in my playtest. So huge shout out to them, and thank you for that. Overall, I found the playtest to be quite interesting. Learning the combat style was quite difficult, especially when it was all thrown at you at once. You know, we jumped all the way to level 120, whereas this skill is definitely going to be much more helpful to learn from the start. It's going to take a while to master each ability and each combination, but I think this combat style has the potential to be quite powerful and also quite fun to use. I will be keeping up with necromancy myself and uploading as much content I can about the skill. So if you guys are interested in more necromancy related content, make sure to subscribe for more and hit that notification button so you are notified for whenever I do upload. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy Necromancy on August 7th.